Hey everyone, it's Deborah Carter here from Preparation Tech. Today I have another interview for our Black History Month 2021 series. I'm speaking with Sly Emenike, who is a game developer and producer based in Amsterdam, who was recommended by a person that I know who runs a gaming incubator in the Netherlands. I asked him, did he know of any Black talent? And Sly was the first name out of his mouth. So welcome, Sly. So happy to have you here. Let's start off by you introducing yourself, telling us what you do and how it relates to technology.
Cool. So hi, I'm Sly Emenike, 27 years old. As Deborah said, living in Amsterdam. Currently, I'm a producer at Romano Games, where we're an indie game studio where we create games for the consoles and the PC. And next to that, I still create games myself. So in my spare time, I game a lot, but also make games myself.
Great, awesome. Tell me about your work at Romano Games. So you work on a team that is developing games. What's the process like? And who are the different people involved in creating games?
Yeah. So at Romano Games, we have about 20 people right now. And that means there are like different kinds of people also. While creating games, you need the main three aspects you need of a game is like the coding team, so the technical backbone of the game, the visual team, so the artist, the people that actually draw the game, and yeah, that's actually the visuals you see in the game, and the people that kind of think about the game, like what components does the game have, why is the game fun? So those are the game designers. And next to that, you have other people around the team that actually work for the team or with the team to do anything. So those could be like music people actually creating the audio, right? The producers, so that's me, people that actually kind of manage the team, make sure that they can work and don't have any interference, management team, and other parts here and there. So I think these are like the key people in a game studio.
Awesome. Why don't you describe one of the games that you're producing so that we get a sense of kind of the games that Romano develops?
Yeah, so Romano Games, one of the biggest hits is Awesome Knots. Awesome Knots, some people might know it. Awesome Knots is a 2D MOBA game. Uh, so 2D means like the two-dimensional ones, so not the three-dimensional ones. And a MOBA means like it's a multiplayer online battle arena. So people actually compete with each other. But now we're working on Blightbound. It's a 3D, 2D, three-player co-op dungeon crawler. Those are a lot of keywords. But it means that three people work together in a team to complete dungeons and missions. That's the game we're working on right now. It's in early access, and we hope to release it in the coming months.
Cool. Now, take us kind of behind the door of your company. Is it mostly guys working there? Are there women working there? Is it a diverse team? Yeah, what's the culture of your company?
Yeah. So I joined Romano Games 6 months ago. So I joined in the Corona time where I couldn't meet everyone. So the culture is really not something I can talk about it, but it's not something I 100% experience, right? But still, Romano is a very open company which respects like everyone, every minorities as well, people of color, LGBTQ. But the thing is, it mainly consists of white males, which is kind of normal in the game industry, especially here in Holland. So it consists of lots of guys, and the women there are, I can think of two right now. So yeah, it's not a balanced group of people, so to say, but still we're an open community where people are actually open about anything, and we accept everyone. So that's nice.
So it seems like maybe your company is kind of representative of the gaming industry. And I ask you that because the gaming industry, if people look at it, and often there's a perception that it's very male, very white. Do you see any changes taking place in the gaming industry? Are you seeing more people of color going in? Are you seeing even games that reflect Black people and people of color?
Yeah, so I think the game industry is changing bit by bit, as it was well, I've been here for about 7 years now, I think. It was mainly white. And now I can see that more students, more people that actually joined the industry are more broad. So it's not like 90% male anymore, white males, but it's changing bit by bit. An example is most of our interns are actually like female, right? So
Ah, cool.
so that's a cool thing to see. And I also had it at the previous company where we also saw the shift in people. But if you look at the main part, it's still male. And regarding like the characters in game, this is something I see a bit of a shift where there are like black people characterized in games, but this is still a shift I don't see coming up that fast at the moment.
Interesting. And maybe you'll be the person to help to guide that shift.
Yeah.
Tell us why you love gaming. Like, how did you get into it? Were you crazy about gaming as a kid and then you just said, I've got to do more, and that's how you got into it?
Well, actually, yes. So when I was like about 4 years old, when I was 4 years old, I got this gaming console for my birthday. It's the Nintendo 64. And that's actually when I started to fall in love with gaming. And from that moment on, I could never get enough of it. So this is actually why I rolled into like the game development side. Yeah, why do I love it? I I cannot really explain it. I just like it. It's something that's part of me, that's in me. I like the competition side of games a lot. So I like to play with people, against people. I like to win, but I also like to play like the casual side of games where you play board games with friends. It's more of a social pastime as well. And it's also a means of connecting people. So I think gaming is a good way to connect people, even if you don't know each other. It's something you can easily talk about when you have it in front of you.
Interesting. So we established that you love gaming from a very young age. Tell us
Yeah.
a bit about your childhood. How did you grow up? What were your interests and your hobbies? Who influenced you?
So one of my hobbies was always gaming. So that hasn't left me at all. How I grew up. So I grew up in a divorced parents family. So my mom and dad are divorced. My mom lives in Alphen aan de Rijn, and my dad here in Amsterdam. And it was from a very young age. I was about 2 years old, I think. So that's a normal thing for me. My parents being divorced. And I'm not sure if that has anything to do with me gaming, but gaming was always with me, so I could do it on the road wherever I am. So that was also a nice thing. Uh, yeah, other hobbies were mostly hanging out with friends, playing. I like to play games outside, like tag or hide and seek. These were kind of stuff I really liked. People that inspired me, I didn't have really any people that inspired me in a way. My parents were always an inspiration, like their perseverance and working hard. Sort of an inspiration, but not a conscious one. It was more of an unconscious inspiration. So yeah, I think I mostly had my internal motivation to do stuff, right? So once I wanted to do something, I really did it. And if I didn't like it at all, I kind of skipped it as well, which is actually a bad thing for me. But yeah.
Yeah. And what about school? What subjects did you do well in school? Or you didn't do
Uh,
well in school?
well, let's say for the first part of my school career, so once I was like 16 years old, I was like the typical teenager, which, well, didn't like school at all, just sit at home gaming. But I actually liked some subjects of school a lot. Like the physical education was my favorite one, where I could actually do stuff and have fun with people. But I was also pretty good at math, and I really liked math from a young age. Like doing stuff with numbers was something I really liked. And languages was something I really hate and still do. Like grammar and stuff with languages is something I never liked in a young age. But now currently I start to like talking to other people of a different country and getting to know the culture and stuff. So I think having to know these languages is pretty necessary and important.
Did you ever do the coding side of things? Because coding is a language.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
did coding.
Well, I don't see coding as a language. Like coding is more of a logical way of thinking. Well, language is as well a sort of logical way, but in the other sense. since my math skills and logical thinking skills were quite good, which are also like traits for a good developer, by the way. So I think that's why I started to like coding, because I was good in maths and logical thinking, and not languages in a way.
And then what happened? So you left high school, and then, if I understand correctly, you studied game design.
Yeah. So when I left high school, I first started to do commercial economics.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Because once I was done with high school, I had no clue what I actually should study. Because during my high school, I didn't do anything with game development at all. So I was just a gamer, right? I didn't make games by then. I didn't know what to do. And I was always like interested in sort of the business side of stuff, like how to run a business, numbers and stuff. And then I chose commercial economics, which was not a wise choice because I didn't like it at all. So I quit half a year later. And then I don't know why, but I found out that game development actually exists as a study. And it was really close by, like a 5-minute walk to my university. And that's the moment I started game development and actually starting to make games myself. So that was a 4-year study, which I did in 5 or 6 years. And it was a fun ride.
Yeah. And I know that part of your study, you were telling me previously, is that you set up a student association. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So the Students Association was quite a rare thing for like the IT department in Amsterdam. We knew some people, like friends, that were in a student association or actually did a board of a student association. So we heard all these nice stories about how fun it was and how much fun they had next to their studies, right? And this is something we really missed because all the people at our study just did studying and went home. And our group was actually quite bummed about doing stuff with the students and building these relationships with each other. So we decided to work on a student association, which is now still alive. It's like the 5th year that they're here, and they're still doing stuff like game tournaments, talks from the industry, social gatherings. So that's nice.
So you were a leader and you were a trailblazer in terms of creating something that's really benefiting people. I think that's absolutely fantastic. What were some of the skills that you learned from that experience of starting the student association?
I think I learned most of my social skills when I started game development, especially doing the student association. Because I was quite a shy person. If people know me now, they are like quite confused when I say that. I was really shy. But that's my biggest takeaway from doing this student association and talking to people, like people skills, right? But I also learned that networking is also important. You need to know the right people in order to do something. And people management in a way, like if you have a big group and you want to do something, you cannot do that with like the whole group, right? It will be chaos if you have to decide it with the whole group. So I started to learn people skills, how to work with like larger groups, make the right decisions. I hope the group is okay with that. So these are the main takeaways.
Perfect. And take us back to your game design program. What were the key things that you learned in these programs? Because I think there's a lot of kids, especially boys, but more girls, that are interested in studying game design. And by the way, it's not just for people who want to work in the gaming industry. So if you look at gaming as like gamification of how these companies use gamification to get customers to buy services or engage in their processes, those game development skills can be applied to a lot, and it doesn't have to be the gaming industry. Tell us a bit about what you study in a game design program.
Yeah. So my study was a mix of game development and design. So development is more of the technical way to say programming. And I had a bit of game design as well. For the game design part, I actually learned how a game is built up. Like, what are the key components of a game? What do you need to create a game? It has to be fun, right? And in order to be fun, people had to be engaged in a way. So you learn how to engage people in your game, And that's also something you can apply to other things, like how do you keep people engaged with your product or with something they actually don't like, but they will have to like in a way. So that's something I learned. I learned most of my technical skills there. So actually coding, so how to make something that actually appears on your screen, because it seems easy maybe for some people, but on the backside of your phone or whatever, it's lots of smart people that actually worked on this technology. So yeah, it's most of sort of tricks or most of the psychological skills needed to create a fun game or fun product for your audience.
So it was a mix of the technical and then the game design. Funny you
Yes.
should say psychology, because I'm mentoring a group of girls and one of them is really interested in psychology. And she thought the only career path was to be a psychologist with seeing individual clients. And I said to her, well, do you know that a lot of gaming and digital entertainment companies hire psychologists because they want people to like their products and services? This
Yeah.
was a revelation for this girl. She had no idea that this is possible. And I hear more, a lot of psychologists going into the gaming industry. So super interesting.
The external studies, like studies you don't relate to game development at all, still benefits in a way, because I've heard of psychologists actually doing game design because they know how a brain works, right? Like what tickles the fun side of your brain. But I also talked to an architect today that actually wants to move into the game industry because he has the technical skills to make the visual side of the game, because he has models or programs that can make 3D models of buildings. But in a way, it's the same to make these models into game models. Like, how do you make a model in game, like a building or a character? So there are several studies that are actually intertwined with each other in game development.
Absolutely. So back to your schooling, I know that you did an internship at the Dutch Game Garden, which is this business incubator for the gaming industry.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so the Dutch Game Garden is like a sort of a hub for game developers, game companies to just work on their own project, but also to work in a place where other people with the same interest and same ideas live together or work together. So I did my internship at this place called Virtual Play, which was inside the Dutch Game Garden. And this was actually the moment I actually started to know how this industry works, like what people are in this industry, what do I need to actually work in this industry after I'm done with my studies. So I started to learn lots of people, get in touch with like these people like JP, for example, and other people. And I started to learn that's quite important to know these people, because it was quite a competitive industry to work on as a new person.
Awesome.
And it was also a fun time. I learned a lot. I met lots of people. It's always fun to do an internship. That's cool, right?
Yeah, and I imagine it gave you a lot of practical skills. You had the theoretical, the academic stuff, but then to just deep dive into the gaming industry. Yeah, cool, cool.
Yeah.
What would you say is the mindset and the personal characteristics of successful game designers? And I ask this question for the kids out there, the students out there who are thinking about game design, game development, but not sure if it matches their personality.
I think if you do it for the money, it's not your right place. Just to have that out of the table. But I think you need like some sort of passion for games or making games, because that really helps to talk about games and get something creative on the table. I don't know any people in this game industry that doesn't like gaming. So everyone I know is somewhat related in the games. Like they play games in the free time, they play board games with their parents, or in a way, they have something with games outside of their actual work. So I think that's one of the most important traits, but also perseverance, because it's a hard industry. Like there are lots of people that actually want to make games, and they think it's easy, but it's not that easy as you might think. Lots of artists, for example, that are pretty good drawers, for example, they want to make games, but you need so many more skills other than being good at drawing to get in the industry. So I think you need perseverance, the will to learn more, the will to go further than other people want. These are some key elements you'll need to actually start to work here and keep working in this industry.
And I guess you speak from experience because you also develop your own games apart from your company. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So, well, my passion is games, and I started to love games once I was actually in the industry. So, in my pastime, once I'm done working, I still make games for myself, but also with a group of people. And I use this part also to just let my creativity loose. So when you work in a company with like a set amount of people, you cannot express or do what you really like because you have to work with multiple people. So if you work alone, you have like a complete creative freedom to make a game that you really like or just want to get out of yourself. So I started doing that about 2 years ago, where I took like 1 hour or 2 hours each day after work, or actually before work sometimes, to work on a game I like. And I started to do that with multiple people as well, where I also see that they have this drive. So we bonded together to create games.
Awesome. Are there other ways that you actually keep learning and keep engaged with the gaming industry?
Yeah, for sure. So at Romano Games, I'm a producer. So I'm not really the person that actually makes the game. So that's why I also make games in my free time. But there are also events all over the world called game jams, which are like small time frames where you have to make a game. So the global game jam was the end of January, where we had 48 hours to create a game. So I did it with a group of friends. We participated. It was an online version this time. And we had 48 hours to create a game. So that's actually something we did. So this 48 hours are quite hectic because you have to go to the whole cyclus of creating a game, right? So creating an idea, what do you want to make? How are you going to make it? How are you going to finish it? So all these elements that are quite long in the game development cycle are cramped up in 48 hours. So this is some of the ways I really like to keep my skills up, but also, yeah, a way to do other things you're not normally doing in the game development cycle.
Have to ask you this question. Have you faced challenges as a Black man in the gaming industry? And if so, how did you overcome these challenges? And again, this is guidance for any youth that might be out there watching this video who wants to get into the gaming industry.
Yeah. Well, once I started, I saw I was one of the only Black persons. Like maybe I saw one or two of them in the game development department of my school, but I was one of the only ones. But I was kind of used to that already because I live in Holland. I studied at Al van der Rijn for a while in my middle school. So I was kind of used to being around and being the only Black person. But once I entered the game industry and doing my studies, I actually felt quite accepted because I feel that the people in the game industry are quite open for anything that's not like the major flow, right? So if you're Black or if you're a woman, if you're like some of the LGBTQ community, you're accepted from the get-go, which is quite a rare thing if I look into like other industries. So I felt at home once I started, and I didn't feel any challenges at all of me being Black. The challenges that were there were related to my knowledge and skill and my personality, right? So sometimes I'm lazy, and lazy is not a good thing if you actually have to work hard sometimes. So I'm quite lucky that I could be in this community of people that are really acceptive of who I am and what I do.
Very much so. So, Sly, my last question to you, and this is coming back to the theme of Black History Month. How would you like to be remembered? How would you like people in the Black community and elsewhere to remember Sly Emenike? What is your legacy?
Yeah, so I'm quite a joyful person, so that's how I also want to be remembered. Just like a a good person that is good for other people. And I also like to help other people to get up as well if they need like this kind of push, right? So that's, I think, how I want to remember it. The joyful person that likes to help people, but also someone that actually stands for what he likes and what he does. Games, I don't want to be remembered for like the games I make, for example, because that's something I just like to do, and it's not something I do for the people, but that's something I do for myself. So yeah, being a joyful person, fun person to be around that actually tries to help people when in need.
Awesome. Sly, thank you so much for this interview. It has been
Thank you.
wonderful. I've learned a lot about game development and design, and I look forward to tracking your career and just seeing where you go. And I'm going to try to play one of your games or one of the Romano games anyway. But thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And I hope that some people had got anything from out of this interview. And if there are any questions for me or like getting into the game industry, you can hit me up.